Hey guys, it's Tina and welcome to the Qweendom. Alright, so guys, today is Wednesday, June the 5th, and I'm coming at you. Well, if you hear anything, I'm outside, so you're gonna hear a lot of wildlife. I'm coming at you guys with a pretty different video than I usually post, because to be quite honest, for the last couple of months I've been going through something. I guess I'll give you all some background. So I think I've touched on it a little bit before. Within the last 2 years, my family and I have had multiple family members pass away. It started with my great-grandmother, which was in, I think, maybe like the end of 2016. And then my grandmother, then my uncle, then my dad, like you all know, and most recently my great aunt passed away. So with the deaths of multiple people, I went into a state of like constant anxiety and worry. Yeah, constant state of anxiety and worry. Just like I said to y'all before, when I was younger, I used to suffer with anxiety, which I wasn't aware of it then. But as I got older and like not figured out what some of my triggers were, but be more conscious and aware of some of my triggers, I had a good handle on it. But when my grandmother got sick, the anxiety didn't start then, but once we found out what she was sick from, it did. So my grandmother had cancer, and this is my mother's mother, had cancer, and she passed away literally right before I had Bailey 2 years ago. So my family and I got to see her go through that transition and process, and I tried to look at the bright side of everything. So I was grateful for the fact that we knew what was going to happen prior to it happening. So as a family, we were able to I don't know how you prepare for those kinds of things, right? We were able to at least mentally and emotionally start the process of her no longer being with us. Another family member who had cancer was my grandmother on my father's side. She is still living, thank God. But years ago, she had cancer as well. My uncle, who passed away right before or near my oldest daughter's birthday, as well as my uncle, my dad passed away as well. So it was literally like back to back. My grandmother passed away just before I had Bailey, and literally 2 months later, like a week apart from each other, my uncle and my dad passed away. And it is the uncle of, my uncle, of course, but it was my grandmother's son, which, yeah, my grandmother's son, which the grandmother who passed away from cancer, her son, actually had cancer as well. My dad didn't pass away from cancer. I don't know whether that's good or bad, but my brain started to think cancer, 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 cancer. Oh, and I actually, wow. My aunt, who is my mother's sister, actually had cancer as well. She didn't pass away. She's still living, thank God. So that is my grandmother, my mother's mother who had cancer, my mother's brother who had cancer, my mother's sister who had cancer. All same line. So my brain started to think cancer, 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 cancer. Although I knew that my mother's sister, who I just mentioned, was still living and did not pass away from cancer, I still thought in my brain, okay, my grandmother on my father's side also had cancer. So that's two grandmothers, both grandmothers, one aunt and uncle. And then most recently last year, I had a great aunt from my mother's side still who passed away from cancer. So that's 4 family members on the same side of my family who had cancer. Talked to my father's mother, who is my grandma, of course. And just like I said, she had cancer, she fought it, and she's in remission. She's been in remission for years now. I talked to her and she told me that prior to me being born, or like when I was really young, a couple of members of my father's family, like my grandfather and a couple of his sisters, also had cancer. So there we go. I'm like, oh my God, like, you know, it's so interesting what you know about your family history, and then when you have certain conversations, the realization of what you actually do not know about your family. So I was thinking cancer. I let it run my life for a very long time. I'm actually going to do a video on my therapy experience, because that my therapy experience helped me to identify that it was definitely the cancer that was ideas and feelings of what cancer could do to me and my family that were some of my triggers, and death, of course, because I just named literally 3 people in my family who were very significant in my life, as well as the lives of my children, who passed away within the same year, within 2 months of each other. Mind you, again, I was pregnant with Bailey initially, and I had Bailey just before my grandmother passed away. So this year I decided that I was not going to continue to let fear, worry, and anxiety rule my life. So when I went to my yearly woman checkup in the local women's clinic here, I spoke with my doctor about getting genetic screening. And I told her what my family history was, and she was like, well, you know, I'll refer you, reach out to them, and this, that, and the other. So literally, I think I got my woman's checkup like February, and I still waited a while to call, because I was like, you know, what if I reach out and they find something, or you know, just the worry concerning that. I did reach out in, I think maybe April. It literally took me 2 months to reach out. I think I reached out in April. Got an appointment for May. Even as the appointment got closer, I was just like, I don't know whether I should do this or not, because if they do find something, I don't even know how I'm going to handle that. It's going to continue to trigger anxiety and worry, like just a ball of really not knowing, and just the fear of not knowing. So I actually reached out to the genetic counselor, and over the phone she told me that I actually did not meet the criteria for genetic counseling because of what my family history was, based off of her observation and what I told her. And my family history was actually not significant for cancer, although it was on both sides of my family. And she told me how cancer usually works in terms of genetics, and just that I had a lower probability that genetic cancer at least would affect me. And she told me that since I did not meet the criteria, my insurance wouldn't cover it. So since my insurance wouldn't cover it, I would have to pay $250 out of pocket in order to do this genetic counseling. Of course, I'm like, $250? Like, are you kidding me? That's nothing. Absolutely, I'll pay for it out of pocket. So I had my initial appointment with genetic counselor in May, early May, excuse me, in early May. And I'm gonna give you all the information. She actually gave me like some background information about the company, and just the price, and what will be offered, and how long it would take for the results to come back and everything. And you know, I went down and sat down with her, and it was just me and her. And you know, I just talked about my family members who I miss so much, and then passing away from cancer, and how it's affected me even more than anything, the anxiety and fear portion of it. And yeah, so the company that I went with is Invitae, Invitae, INVITAE. And I'll try to like at least show you all a picture or something like that. What I'm looking at is just the paper that she gave me about Invitae and their commitment, and why they only offer the $250 if you have to pay out of pocket. and just how they work hard at providing affordable genetic testing for people if they choose to go that route, and then just the multiple options that are offered. So what actually happened at my initial appointment with her, just like I said, we sat down and talked about my genetics and the cancers and what kind of cancers and all of that kind of stuff. And she actually took my blood in the office, the genetic counselor, certified genetic counselor. I went to a cancer center to get this genetic counseling, get this genetic testing per se. And she took my blood there. I think, was it 1, 2? I can't even remember. It wasn't a lot. It might have been like 1 vial of blood, purple top. And yeah, that was it. I had to, of course, sign the informed consent for panel genetic testing. And then she also gave me a printed handout about risk factors for different kinds of cancer. So my grandmother had liver. Of course, we don't know whether it was genetic for her. She had liver, and then my uncle had kidney. She advised me then that kidney is pretty rare, but since it was in my family history, she wanted me to test me for it. My grandmother on my father's side had breast, I think. My aunt on my mother's side had breast. My great aunt, who passed away most recently, had liver. So that's like 2 liver, 2 breast, and a kidney, you know. So, you know, they give you excuse me, a handout listing the different kinds of cancers, what the panel actually tests for. I was tested for 44 of my genes were tested, the BRCA1, BRCA2, and a whole bunch of other ones that I've never heard of. And then it talks about mutations and likelihood of the mutations, and just a lot of different things. To be honest with you, it was a lot of information. It was quite overwhelming. And she told me that my results would come back within about 3 weeks. When you do the genetic testing, they let you know. The lab sometimes reaches out to people, but since I had went through her and she was my genetic counselor, that they would send the information to her and then she would reach out to me. So once I got the blood test done, it was like my anxiety was a lot lower than what it had been in months. I was a lot more relaxed. I felt like the joy that I felt, I could display it. You know, I could be okay with being happy and joyful at that point, although I had not received the results yet. So literally about a week later, because I did it on a Wednesday, literally about a week later, I received a call from her office, and immediate trigger, immediate anxiety, immediate, I was at work. I don't know why I'm feeling emotional, but I was at work that day and I saw the numbers. So interesting how as you age, it's like, and especially if you have anxiety or fear issues that try to take you down, just seeing the number triggered me. So I had missed the call because I can't really be on my phone at work. So I saw that I had missed the call, and immediately I'm thinking, oh my gosh, first, why does she have the results back this quickly? It's only been a week. She told me it would at least take 3 or 4 weeks. And then when I saw the missed call, cell service and Wi-Fi service is shoddy at both of my jobs. So I saw the missed call, but I didn't see that she had left a voicemail. So again, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, she has horrible results. It's come back in a week. This isn't, like, literally thinking all bad. This is bad. She's called back in a week. Then she didn't leave a voicemail, because you know that depending on the consent that you sign, people can leave detailed voicemails or just say, hey, give us a call when you can or whatever. So yeah, no voicemail. I kept looking at my phone. So after about 10 minutes, I called the office and just was like, I received a call from the genetic counselor. I want to schedule a follow-up. They had to take my information, which caused me anxiety as well. They had to take my information and I guess like email it to her, and then she would reach out to. Within that 10-minute window, it seemed like as soon as I hung the phone up with her, I looked at my phone and she actually had left a voicemail at the same time that she called, of course. But just like I said, since service is shoddy, you know, I listened to the voicemail and she was just like, you know, this is so-and-so. We have your results back. Give me a call when you can. So right after I listened to her voicemail, I saw her calling me, and surprisingly this call came through, so I had to answer the call. And it was just really a quick conversation. She was like, you know, this is so-and-so. We have your results. When would you like to come in? And you know, I wanted to ask 5,000 questions, but I do understand that not even patient confidentiality, and just the mere fact that it's not always good if they give you certain results over the phone because of how, you know, it might be perceived or you might react. So yeah, I went in on a Friday, and at this one I couldn't go by myself. Surprisingly, Curtis was off on this Friday. It was me, Curtis, and the little girls. And even prior to the appointment on that particular day, I was telling Curtis, like, I don't think I want to go. Like, you know, just wrestling and struggling with myself about what the results might be and how it would affect me and my children and my family. And, you know, if something was positive, what would I tell my mother? What would I tell my sister? What would I tell my brother? It was really tough. You know, it was just so hard. It was just so difficult. Of course, good morning. It was just tough. Like, I really can't put it into words. I wanted to do it. You know, it's like I wanted to do it, but then I didn't. I forgot to tell you all, at my first meeting with the genetic counselor, since she told me that I didn't qualify for my insurance covering it because of the criteria, rigid criteria if you ask me, that needed to be met, she told me that if anything was positive, it would affect insurance coverage that I might have in the coming years, because, you know, in the US, this healthcare thing is real. And if you have pre-existing conditions, they're not supposed to discriminate against you. But many of us know that they do. They just do. So she was saying that if I was positive, there would be a potential of me getting dropped from my insurance, you know, because of what the possibility of what is to come could be. And that was something that I struggled with too. Like, dang, like, what if it is positive? Then, yeah. Oh, also, the thought came to my mind prior to me even meeting with my women's doctor this year. Last year, my sister went to see her doctor and basically had the same conversation that I had. And her doctor suggested that we get genetic counseling as well. So it's like my sister put the idea in my brain, and at that time I was like, of course not. I'm not interested. No, over, done with. So when I made the decision to get the genetic counseling, after speaking with my mom about it, of course my sister was one of the people that I had the conversation with. So yeah. But let me get you all to the results. So just like I said, after a week she reached back out to me. Curtis, and the little girls went. I was very apprehensive about going. Basically, when I got my results back, negative result, no pathogenic sequence, variants or deletions, duplications identified. The summary, it says no reportable genetic variants were identified by this analysis. This individual may still be at risk for certain medical conditions based on other factors. But basically, it gave me the list of all the genes that were evaluated, and that there were no deletions, there were no duplications, there were no mutations in my genes. So it says test performed sequence analysis and deletion duplication testing of 44 genes listed in the results. I was over the moon happy. over the moon excited. Fear and doubt and anxiety still tried to creep in once I got these results, but I am learning to banish that back to the depths of hell from whence it came and where it belongs. It's like I have a new lease on life. I sometimes still struggle with the anxiety portion, but not over that anymore. You know, sometimes in life it just seems like once you tackled one hurdle, once your mind has relaxed on one thing, quickly another thing is trying to enter and have you be doubtful and fearful and be anxious and worry. But I'm working hard at not letting that take me down, not letting that overcome me. I'm not allowing anything to affect my joy anymore. Not the idea of cancer, because that is a lie, and I banish it back to the depths of hell from whence it came. Or any other thing, like I'm working hard at being happy and joyful and knowing and understanding that it is what I deserve, it is what I long for, it is what I need, it is what helps me thrive, and me smiling is not a bad thing, you know. Oh my goodness, I miss all of my family members, you know. I miss something about all of them. My grandmother, I didn't tell you all this before, my grandmother who passed away, her maiden name was Bailey, so I always have a piece of her with me. You know, her maiden name was Bailey, and before she passed away, I told her that we will be naming her Bailey, and you know, she was like, no, that was my maiden name. And whew, I know and understand that divine intervention had a lot to do with us naming her Bailey. And then with Bryn, my uncle passed away, his name was Brian. And of course, like Bryn, Brian, similar spelling, but of course my uncle was B-R-I-A-N and Bryn is B-R-Y-N-N. Same thing with her name, although we did not name her after my uncle. One of my family members pointed out to me that, you know, yeah, you know, there are similarities there, and I'll take it. He was one of the strongest people that I knew. He loved hard, he fought hard, he worked hard, and I feel his presence every day, not just through the little people, but just everywhere all the time. And yeah, I love and miss them. I'm gonna end the vlog before I cry. It's still early and the little girls are sleeping, so I'm trying to enjoy the sun that is beating on my back and loving me down. As usual, thank you guys so very much for watching. Make sure you continue to like, comment, and subscribe. And in the comments below, I want you all to let me know if you have ever considered genetic testing or genetic counseling. If you have, why? And I know the C word, the cancer word, is really difficult for families to even consider or think, or I'm not going to say accept, but think or consider or even fathom. So you know, if you feel comfortable, let me know how that C word has affected you and your family and how you're coping with it. And if it has not, would you ever consider genetic testing or counseling? If so, why? You know, thank you guys so very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Enjoy.